Alright, so it's time we discuss everybody's favourite topic, the mythical dojutsu, the Jougan. I don't think I've done a video dedicated to the Jougan in ages, so I think it's time to revisit this and discuss with the new knowledge that we have now, how powerful will this eye truly be, and what is the abilities it will grant Boruto with. Now, whether you are a Jougan believer or not, because I know a small minority of people believe that the Jougan isn't canon, it's safe to say that Boruto is going to undergo a huge awakening that will propel him to the levels of Jura. And whether it's the Jougan or not, the abilities I discuss in this video will be relevant no matter what the actual awakening in Boruto is. Anyways, before we get into that, if you do go on to enjoy this video, then make sure to hit the like button, just so this gets pushed out to more and more people. And if you want to see more content like this, then be sure to subscribe so YouTube recommends my videos to you in the future. But with that all said, let's get into this video. As per always with these videos, I think it's important to go over why this power is implied to be so damn strong. And then we'll get into the juicy stuff like its potential abilities after we've already discussed that. So the main major foreshadowing that the Jougan is going to be the key to propel Boruto to the level of Jura and beyond is the information provided to us via Kashin Koji. He has reiterated many times to Boruto that he must not be so reckless, since if he dies, then so does the world along with him. Like in chapter 4 for example, when the Shinju first awakened, Kashin Koji told Boruto to get out of there immediately, and later scolded Boruto for taking on too much too soon, clearly implying that later on will be the time where Boruto can actually fight these Shinju. And also in chapter 17, Kashin Koji told Boruto, if you die, there is simply no hope left for this world. But as of current, Boruto roughly scales in between the Shinju and Jura, where he can beat a Shinju one-on-one with relative ease, but the way Kashin Koji makes out to be, the jump from where he is now to where Jura is absolutely huge. Since Kashin Koji told Boruto that in their current circumstances, their chances of all fighting Jura collectively and winning, that's not even Boruto just one-on-one, is less than 1 in a million. But if this were the case, where their odds of survival is so small, why does Kashin Koji still have hope for the future? And why is Boruto so important? Well, if it isn't obvious already, then the Jougan is what will come in the future. And this is the dojutsu which will allow Boruto to ultimately defeat Jura. This foreshadowing that the Jougan is almost the eye of hope for the ninja world goes as far as back in the early Boruto anime, where when Toneri appeared in Boruto's dream, he described the Jougan, or the Pure Eye, as so powerful that the entire fate of this world will fall solely on that dojutsu alone. So the writing is there for the Jougan to be insanely overpowered. And I think the other main mystery besides the power of the eye itself is how Boruto will awaken this eye in the first place. We know it won't come through tragedy, as Boruto has already experienced plenty of that. But as of now, there isn't really any other way to unlock a dojutsu, other than being born with it or going through a tragedy. But the topic of Boruto unlocking the Jougan would make this video far too long, so if you want me to do a separate video discussing what needs to happen for Boruto to awaken it, then make sure to let me know in the comments just so I know that that's a video that you guys want to see in the future. Anyways, I think that I've covered most of what I needed to, so now let's get into the main part of the video, which is what are the abilities of this dojutsu going to be. And to make things even more interesting, I'm going to rank these in order of which ones I think are most likely to be abilities of the Jougan, and then towards the end I'll do the ones that I think are lesser likely, or at least the most abstract. So the first ability, very simply, is going to be boosted stats, both ocularly and physically. If the dojutsu we see in the manga is written in the same way as it appeared in the anime, we can guarantee that this dojutsu will significantly enhance Boruto's reaction time, as well as his speed. Because in the fight against Fused Momoshiki, once this eye awakened, Boruto was able to dodge and counter an attack from Momoshiki at point blank range. This feat is often overlooked, but this is child Boruto we're talking about. The same kid who was losing to the likes of people like Shinki or Shikadai in the Chunin exams. The same high Jonin level Boruto was able to literally dodge and land a pretty significant blow on Momoshiki, who is obviously an Otsutsuki level threat, who was able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Naruto and Sasuke. So for the Jougan to allow such a huge jump in ocular abilities back then, given this a post-time skip Boruto, is going to be even more ridiculously busted. But it's very hard to give an exact reference on how much this will actually boost him, since Boruto either photorized kawaki and code in his base, or was sniped from Jura without even realizing what had hit him. There was no real in-between where Boruto only just dodged something, he either did everything with relative ease or he just didn't even react in time. So it's hard to say, will this allow Boruto to be able to dodge attacks from people like Jura? But what it is safe to say that in terms of raw power, which Boruto may be slightly lacking in right now, this dojutsu is going to increase it by 10-fold, which will be a very nice buff for him indeed. Also, before we go any further, let's consider the origins of this dojutsu, as that would allow us to uncover what other potential abilities abilities this dojutsu will actually have. So where it is slightly unclear right now on why Boruto is basically the chosen one bestowed upon the gods to awaken this dojutsu, it's quite likely that this dojutsu originally belonged to the Otsutsuki god Shibai. The name of this dojutsu is quite literally the Pure Eye, which actually links quite well into the samsaric cycle that the Otsutsukis undergo of reincarnation. It was stated that the Otsutsuki's true goal is to eventually become a true god, to the point where they don't even need a physical body, which is basically just ascension, or in religious terms, enlightenment. Enlightenment is supposed to be a state of purity, where someone's karma was so pure and perfect, it allows them to reach enlightenment and ascend to godhood. So using this logic, the Pure Eye could serve as the gateway that allowed Shibai to reach the Pure Lands of the Naruto-verse. But that doesn't really give us an insight into how powerful this dojutsu actually is. But what it does show us is that this dojutsu is likely the final one that the Otsutsuki unlock after undergoing many karmic reincarnations. Subsequently, given the Otsutsuki unlock stronger and stronger dojutsu the further along they are in their journey to godhood, this could suggest that a dojutsu like the Jougan is just innately stronger than something like the Kokugan. And we saw that Shibai seemed to have a Rinnegan, Kokugan, and Jougan, and the next closest to godhood Otsutsuki we have for reference is Isshiki, who had both the Kokugan and the Byakugan. Which then takes me on to my next point, which is the number of horns these two used to have. Shibai used to have 2 horns, but Isshiki only had 1. So perhaps this could suggest that Isshiki had half completed the transformation that Shibai reached, and hence him having the same dojutsu that Shibai had at the Kokugan, but on the other side, since he hadn't awakened that final horn, he didn't have a Jougan and instead he still had the basic Byakugan. And subsequently, this could mean that the Jougan is just an awakened Byakugan, beyond that of the Tenseigan. So that should give us a base of what we can expect from the Jougan itself. And this is also backed up by the anime once again, since when Boruto activated the Jougan, he was able to see Nue's chakra points, but also its weak points, showing the advances this dojutsu has made over the Byakugan, where instead of just seeing a user's chakra points, the Jougan can show you specifically where to target in order to deal the most damage. Obviously, if he does have the Jougan, he will eventually learn the Hyuga fighting style to be able to target those chakra points on his opponents. And this ability may help quite a lot against the likes of Jura, with him relying quite heavily on his large chakra reserves. But moving on to the next ability of this dojutsu is going to be the ability to completely suppress Momoshiki. So I did a video yesterday on Boruto using his karma once again, and I believe that until he unlocks a Jougan to keep Momoshiki relevant in the story, Boruto will have a time limit on using this karma, and once this is up, Momoshiki will be able to take over his body. This will, like I said, keep Momoshiki relevant in the story, and also make the Jougan a meaningful power up for Boruto, where if he is granted with the ability to suppress Momoshiki, then he will be able to use the power of the karma freely and as much as he needs. Which may also link into why we saw in the flash forward sequence, Boruto goes straight into his karma mode. However, it will become clear that once we inevitably see this power once again, that Boruto, instead of using this straight away, will use the karma as a last resort, rather than his main technique. And that may suggest that since he has the Jougan in that scene, it could confirm that Boruto's Jougan has granted him control over the karma entirely, due to his lack of hesitation or restraint when it comes to using the karma sparingly. Now, I think it would be difficult to theorize exactly why the Jougan will be the reason for Boruto to be able to suppress Momoshiki, and this is because the writers can really take whatever route they want when it comes to explaining why the Jougan allows Boruto to control Momoshiki. However, I'm still going to give my brief thoughts on a few ways that this could be the case. And I think the most obvious and likely scenario being that the Jougan is just a stronger and more potent / pure force. That means that Momoshiki, using the conscience he still has left inside of Boruto, cannot overpower Boruto's mental state anymore because the Jougan will allow Boruto to see everything more clearly. Which means that the way that Momoshiki was previously taken over Boruto will no longer be an option because Boruto has a lot more control over his conscience and things like that. Another way of justifying this could be that since this is the Pure Eye and is linked to the karma in some way or another, maybe since Boruto has complete control over this eye, he also will have complete control over the use of his karma, which will mean that he doesn't run the risk of being taken over anymore because the karma itself will bend to his will. But like I said, it's really difficult to theorize exactly how Boruto will be able to suppress Momoshiki. I think the more important takeaway here is that this will likely be an ability attached to this dojutsu. Anyways, next up up on this list, I have space-time ninjutsu. Now this probably would be higher up on my list in terms of most likely, but at the same time, since Boruto's already achieved some form of space-time ninjutsu, obviously through the Flying Thunder God, it isn't entirely necessary or as impactful of a power-up for his character to just straight up give him another version of space-time ninjutsu. However, we know from the anime straight up that the Jougan is able to see openings of rifts to other dimensions, which will inadvertently give Boruto access to other dimensions. Isn't an ability he already has, so technically it wouldn't feel like a complete letdown, but space-time ninjutsu just almost feels kinda useless, as the only real functionality it has for Boruto is to minimize the damage to places like Konoha by moving the fight away from the village. But apart from that, this ability isn't going to make Boruto super OP or to the level of Jura and beyond. It will just be a nice added bonus. But since the anime showed that it would have this ability, if we presumed that the anime was canon, you can 100% expect that Boruto will be capable of this ability once he unlocks the Jougan. So the final ability of the Jougan is going to be some form of Shinjutsu. We know that from using Shibai's cells, Amado was able to extract certain Shinjutsu that Shibai used to have access to and give them to the cyborgs that he created. It's unclear as to whether these abilities became innate to Shibai or whether they were actually tied into some form of dojutsu. But Amado did say that the literal Kokugan dojutsu is a Shinjutsu ability in of itself, which then kind of suggests that the Jougan will also be just a form of Shinjutsu ability rather than simply a facilitator, that allowed Shibai to have access to more Shinjutsu abilities. And what I mean by that is it will still have specific abilities attached to it, but stuff like the claw marks or Damon's reflection ability were innate to Shibai himself and hence won't come along with the Jougan. But what I do think the Shinjutsu ability of this dojutsu will be is omnipotence. Now, this is where it gets very, very interesting, because omnipotence is the highest power of all Otsutsuki, a power in which all Otsutsuki try to achieve. But since this ability is the highest level of power of any Otsutsuki, and on top of this, we have already established that the Jougan is also the most powerful or the final dojutsu that an Otsutsuki will be able to unlock, as it's named the Pure Eye, and it's so closely linked to enlightenment. Well then, doesn't it make sense that these two actually go hand in hand? And just something to really get your mind whirring, look at the design in chapter 79 of Boruto Part 1, once Ada unleashes omnipotence. And I would go on to say that this is identical to Ada's Senrigan. But then I'm also going to take this another step further, as I believe that Ada's Senrigan could be a non-fully manifested version of the Jougan. Think about the similarities between the design of these two dojutsu. You got the darkest sclera or the part around the pupil, which aligns with what Boruto had when he used his ability. And where we don't have the official design of the Jougan yet, perhaps it would instead be a full moon rather than Ada's crescent moon. And the crescent moon being the design of Ada's Senrigan is simply just to either imply that the dojutsu is a step down from the Jougan, or to show that it just isn't a fully formed version of it since the moon is incomplete. And Boruto will complete this moon and hence unlock the full version of this power, which may also align with Sarada's mangekyou design, which is actually a sun. So maybe these two can work hand in hand, moon and sun, in order to defeat Jura. And going back to the Senrigan, this could also align with why Ada doesn't have full control over omnipotence yet, and is instead a power which solely reacts on her subconscious desires. And going another step even deeper into this rabbit hole, the Byakugan grants a user the power to see for miles and miles by purely detecting people's chakra. So maybe like I described earlier, the Jougan and the Senrigan are just more developed versions of the Byakugan and the Tenseigan, where the ability to see within a large radius, which is the ability tied into the Byakugan, is made so potent or strong that when you achieve the awakened version of this, which is the Senrigan or the Jougan, it allows the user, similar to the Byakugan, to be able to see certain people's chakra, but since these are awakened, there is actually no limit on where you can actually see. And also, it's not just chakra you see anymore, it's instead everything around you. I mean, it's unlikely, and that's why it's at the bottom of this list, and I might just be cooking straight cereal. But I just feel like there's evidence there that the Senrigan is a developed version of the Byakugan, which as we all know is the default Otsutsuki dojutsu. So would it not make sense that the final or most powerful version of this dojutsu, obviously I'm talking about the Jougan here, is linked to their initial powers of the Byakugan? I mean, personally, I just think that would be some absolutely insane writing. But this would also give Boruto the pathway to get back his brother Kawaki. We know from Boruto's words directly that he wants to defeat Jura, but also after doing this he isn't willing to go on to kill Kawaki. No matter what Kawaki tries to pull, he just wants Kawaki to be his brother once again and to reunite their family. So with him having control over omnipotence, unlike Ada, he can willingly rewrite history in a way that makes everyone view him and Kawaki as both the children of Naruto, reuniting the Uzumaki family. I just think that giving the Jougan the power of omnipotence just makes so much sense, given this has been a massive goal of Boruto's to restore his family. And I think regardless of whether the Jougan is an advanced version of the Senrigan, I still think it will have the powers of omnipotence. And let me know if you think I was cooking here when I said the Senrigan is a much more advanced version of the Byakugan, and if the Jougan is its final form, because I know there's definitely some holes in that theory. But I think there's also enough backing for it to actually work in the series. But honestly, just let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on that theory. And also if you think of any other abilities that this dojutsu will be able to give Boruto, then also make sure to leave them in the comments down below. And if I see enough theories, I can remake another video going through your thoughts on the Jougan's true abilities. Anyways, with that all said, that is going to be a wrap for this video. If you did enjoy, then make sure to smash that like button just so this video gets pushed out to more and more people. And also lets me know that you're enjoying the content at the moment. And if you want to see more content like this, then be sure to subscribe, as it helps me out massively and it also lets YouTube know to recommend you my videos in the future. But with that all said, I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.